Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you all for hopping aboard with me for another video. In this one, I will be speaking on some new information that has come to light in regard to the governor of New Mexico banning guns for 30 days. I did a video on this topic about a week ago, and in that video, I said that there should be an immediate lawsuit and the judge should strike down her ban, basically. Well, we've had something like that kind of come up, but I kind of want to give a timeline here before we get to that point. So after she did her press conference and said there's a 30-day ban on guns, right? Literally the only people who could carry a gun were, first responders, police, of course, and such. But if you were going to a gun range or a gun store, you could carry your gun with you, but you had to, according to her ban, have a trigger lock. So when you leave your home and go to the store or go to the gun range, you have to have your trigger lock in place. Otherwise, you'd be breaking the law, I guess you would say, right? So insane, just insanity. Now, there was a sheriff John Allen, who was supporting I guess you could say reluctantly supporting the governor's ban. I think I even mentioned him in my last video where he basically didn't support the ban, but wanted to show solidarity between himself and the governor, I guess. So he kind of was standing with her on it, but he decided, no good, not going to go against the Constitution, right? And he wants to do the right thing. Now, let me bring in this article. There we go. Matter of fact, let me make it like this so you guys can see that better. I got to look out for you guys so you guys can see what I'm looking at. So this is from Fox News. New Mexico sheriff says he won't enforce unconstitutional gun ban, right? Protecting the Second Amendment. Now, this sheriff is of Bernalillo County, John Allen, right? He described Grisham, who's the governor, Michelle Grisham. He described her 30-day public health order as unconstitutional during a press conference this week, despite standing beside the governor during her rollout of the policy. So yeah, he did. He stood beside her, and he made some statements then that he wasn't really sure about how it was going to look as far as banning these guns, right? So he has since come to his clear mind, right? So shout out to him. Now, he said it's unconstitutional, so there's no way we can enforce that order. This ban does nothing to curb violence, right? Well, he says curb gun violence, but we know what you mean, right? So it's violence, right? A gun is nothing more than a tool that a person uses for whatever they use it for, right? You can pick up a hammer, right? A hammer should be used to hit nails, right? You build with it, all right? Or maybe you're tearing something down with a hammer, but it's a tool. But some people use that tool to go inflict harm on people with it, right? People have been beaten to death with hammers, right? So a gun is a tool that you can use to defend yourself and your family and others, right? From an intruder or from a person who's, coming to do harm to you, right? But then there are people who use a gun as a weapon against people in cold blood. It happens, right? It depends on the person that's using the tool. So that's what this sheriff did. He finally stood up for what's right and decided, hey, I'm not going to uphold that, not going to enforce that, right? He actually said, we must always remember, not only are we protecting the Second Amendment, but at the same time, we have a lot of violence within our community. Let me be clear. I hold my standards high, and I do not or never will hedge on what is right. And of course, the governor of New Mexico, right? She came right back and had some things to say, right? She says, I don't need a lecture on constitutionality from Sheriff Allen. What I need is action, right? So she basically says what we need is for leaders to stand up for the victims of violent crime. We need law enforcement, district attorneys, public officials, school leaders, and state agencies to use every single tool at their disposal to stop this violence, period. Now, she also went on to say that she's seen more, talked about with this violence in the last week or so than she has the last 4 years, which is, I mean, to me, it's very interesting because, like, lady, you are the governor of the whole state, right? So what have you been doing about the crime? Besides taking the guns from law-abiding citizens, what have you done to curb the violence in Albuquerque and the surrounding area? It's ridiculous. Now, I do want to bring in another article, right, where the governor, right, she amended, she chose to amend the order. So right here, and this was from USA Today, right? So this is a left-leaning media group. New Mexico governor amends controversial temporary gun ban, now targets parks and playgrounds, right? Because before it was like you couldn't even go out your house with a gun, period, unless, like I said, you had a gun lock and you were going to a gun store or a gun range. So now you can take it outside, but you just can't take it to parks and playgrounds, right? Which, if you're a law-abiding citizen, I mean, you're not going to go there and inflict harm. I mean, by and large, the people who abide by the law are not going to be out here committing crimes and shooting kids and shooting people at random. Okay, they're not going to be robbing people, anything like that. So it's asinine to even push this at all. So, facing litigation, New Mexico Governor Michelle Grisham amended her targeted and temporary gun ban Friday, this time limiting it to just public parks and playgrounds in areas of high violent crime. So I guess she's literally picking out the parks and playgrounds that's in the hood or in the project or in the area where there's people just committing crimes and people, dope heads walking around and all that, right? So it's funny how your problem areas, but instead of just policing those areas in a tougher way, she just wants to go and just take guns from everybody, right? Just take guns from the people who are not even committing the crime. So that way that when they're accosted by a criminal, they have no defense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's see here. Now, there was an order, right, by a judge that pretty much froze her ban. So let me bring that in. All right. And I will link every source, right, in the description, so you guys can check that out for yourself. But let me bring in this other article where a judge stepped in and said, hey, you're going a little bit too far there, lady. Here we go. Now, this one is from Reuters, and you see the headline, U.S. judge freezes New Mexico governor's gun ban. So this was pretty immediate, okay? It's pretty fast. She did the order September the 8th, and then, this was the 13th, okay? So a federal judge on Wednesday, okay, which was the 13th, temporarily blocked a ban on carrying guns in New Mexico's largest city after the order by Governor Michelle Grisham threw the state into the center of the U.S. gun rights debate, right? Because in that video I did about it, I said she's a Democratic governor. She pushed this just to see how far they could go with this gun taking of guns, right? That's all this was. It's like a test. Like, we're gonna push, and then we're gonna see how far you guys will let us push, infringe on your rights before you push back on us. That's pretty much what they're doing here. It's like a game of cat and mouse. When it comes to these gun rights, that's all it is. They've done similar things in other places too, where they've done something really dramatic as far as the overreaching of gun laws. But when there's pushback from the people, they decide, okay, we'll hold off, and they'll try it again later. So it's up to us to, when it comes, strike it down immediately, right? Get out there, let your voice be heard immediately. Don't wait, because if you wait, they will get stuff pushed through, and we'll be in bad shape here in America. So we can't allow these politicians, governors, mayors, or what have you, to take our rights to bear arms. Period. Can't do it. Now, the U.S. judge in this case is David Urias, and he was appointed by President Biden. Yes, he was. So what he said, all right, was he said the governor's 30-day suspension of concealed and open carry firearm rights in Albuquerque and its surrounding county went against a landmark U.S. Supreme Court ruling that people had a right to carry a gun outside their homes for what? Self-defense. That's right. That is right. They just want the right to carry their guns. Urias, who was appointed by President Joe Biden, said plaintiffs requesting a temporary restraining order on parts of Lujan Grisham's September 8th emergency health order. So the group that actually pushed this, let me find who that group is. There's a specific group. Let's see here. Don't see it right off. But there was a group that pushed for this this suit. Here it is. The president of Colorado gun group that sued the governor, right? So Dudley Brown. All right, so that's the guy's name. So shout out to him for doing that. But yeah, this is a complete overreach. All right. The mayor, Tim Keller, who is the mayor of Albuquerque, said he needed legislation to fix a broken criminal justice system, regulate assault weapons, and provide addiction and mental health services, among other measures. Albuquerque families can't afford political debates that distract us from fighting violent crime, Keller wrote in a Tuesday letter to the governor. And according to Every Town for Gun Safety, New Mexico has about 500 people die by guns each year, which is top 10 per capita in the country, according to them. So, like I said in that last video that I did last week, Albuquerque has long had violent problems. All right. So this is nothing new. It's just that it's gotten to a point where when the numbers get to a certain point, so they had this rule or whatever, this law, this policy there in the state where if you meet certain guidelines with your violence, so your violent numbers hit certain thresholds, then the state can come in and say you meet a health crisis emergency. Okay, so whereas that's what they use for Albuquerque in the surrounding county, they said you guys have so much violence by guns, especially, that you meet the threshold where we can come in and we can put this ban on guns. That's what they used. So it's not like they're just coming and saying, we want to take your guns. But what they did was they specifically used a health emergency situation, right? They created the parameters beforehand, and then once the parameters got met, they came in with this health order ban. So it's this very interesting thing to see. In 2020, we saw how the government took advantage of people, right? People were afraid of the virus at the time. And so, in the name of health, they came in and were able to implement just crazy restrictions and guidelines on how we're supposed to live our lives. You would be arrested for going outside or for having a party, going to the beach or the park. It was crazy, okay, what people would not do because of what the government said. Crazy. So they're doing the same thing here. The attack is on the guns. So they're in New Mexico, they're saying, hey, because of this health order, because you guys' health and safety, we're going to take away your rights. But it's only for 30 days, right? But in reality, just like back in the virus when they said 2 weeks to slow the spread or 2 weeks to stop the wave or whatever they said, and it turned into what, a month, 2 months, 3 months, basically a year. I mean, crazy. So they were going to extend this. Had this judge not stepped in and temporarily frozen this ban, and hopefully it gets struck down completely. Hopefully, just that's why I put in my title, kind of, because he struck it down, but it's not stricken. It's still there. It's still in litigation. Okay, so I hope that goes through as far as the strike of this ban because it's unconstitutional. But we got to be very careful and understand that anytime that the government's coming in and saying we're gonna do this thing to help the situation, right? 9 times out of 10, they're not coming in to help a situation. They're going to take advantage of people using that situation, but they know that she knows she's not going to end the violence in Albuquerque by doing a gun ban. Because guess what? The criminals are going to still have their guns out on the streets. The only people that's going to abide by this gun ban would be the law-abiding citizens. Now, most of them, I hope, wouldn't do it, right? I mean, I wouldn't do that. If my governor told me I couldn't carry my gun outside my home because of some health thing, you got something else coming if you think I'm going to abide by that, right? So I have a God-given right, a constitutional right to carry my gun outside of my home. So I'm going to express that, use that, right? So I don't need a government to tell me not to do that. So people need to be careful and understand that the criminals are going to have their guns, period. Don't get left lacking because the governor told you not to have your gun. Because guess what? The guys who are planning to rob you, they're going to have their guns ready to go. So with that, I'll leave it there. Kudos to the sheriff for waking up, okay? And hopefully, all these elected officials, y'all hold these people accountable. When they do things that go against your rights, hold them accountable. Whether they be a house rep, a state rep, a governor, a mayor, a city councilman, a sheriff, whoever it is that you will elect, a district attorney, whoever you elect, hold these people accountable because we're the ones that put them in their position. So they should be doing their job the right way, okay? Not taking advantage of their seat and position to take away our rights. Thank y'all for watching. If y'all will, leave me a like, comment down below. Let me know what you think about New Mexico's governor going this far with the taking of gun rights. Is she right? Is she wrong? You let me know. Share the video with a friend, and of course, hit that subscribe. Thank y'all so much for doing so. Thank you for hopping aboard with me for another one. This was the Captain's Quarters Show. I was your host, El Milliner, the Captain. Until next time, I am gone.